Welcome to a special edition of Creature Guide Live Daily News. We're going to be going over large species of dinosaurs such as Carnotaurus and Brachiosaurus, as well as probably 6 to 7 other different species. And we're streaming on both Rumble, YouTube, and Kick. So, what? We're going to dive right into, well, smoothly into the late Cretaceous, probably talking about Carnotaurus. Let's bring up we need a picture of or a few pictures of Carnotaurus.
You got so quiet.
And specifically ones where he contains arms too. Because Carnotaurus has one of the smallest arms compared to its body size of any species of dinosaur in general. And you could even say land mammal. I mean animal. So when it comes to Carnotaurus, okay, this one has an issue. This animal should have not really have arms that look similar to a tyrannosaur. Tyrannosaurs have that distinct sort of um, like humorous forearm sort of depiction. Whereas when it comes to Abelisaurs, which is the group of theropods that Carnotaurus belongs to, it should be pretty much straight, but probably pointed towards like diagonally towards the ground to an extent. But in this sort of a way, it's even giving him a Tyrannosaur like a two-fingered look. A Bellysaurus, depending on the species, could have 3 or 4 fingers. So that is quite off. Now, when it comes to the skull of this animal, it is much closer to the realistic depiction, but there still seems to be certain some issue. I mean, at least he has lips. The horns seem okay. But this animal was classified back in 1984 and it was discovered over in Argentina. There aren't a lot of different species of dinosaurs from the fossil formation that this animal came out of. There seems to be another species that was discovered in more recent years called Klenken, which is essentially another species of a bellysaur, and possibly a couple species of sauropod. However, the hadrosauromorphs or any ankylosaurs or nodosaurs that have been discovered in this region, at least at the moment, seem to be um, unidentified. Now, there are different formations in which Carnotaurus comes from, and there are actually a score of other different species of dinosaurs, but just specifically the formation I'm thinking of, dinosaurs are quite rare. However, there are marine deposits where this formation takes place, so there are actually long-necked plesiosaurs here as well. So, referring to animals that resemble the Loch Ness monster, which no, I do not believe exists. This is possibly a realistic aspect of how conflict would occur with Carnotaurs in general. Carnotaurs did have a quite robust skull structure. Now, what is also a bit more realistic about this is that they're not directly headbutting each other because that likely could have caused a lot of damage to their skull. They're not exactly reinforced like certain other species of dinosaurs, especially smaller types of carnivores like the pachycephalosaurs. But even when it comes to them, it tends to be portrayed in some instances where they're hitting towards the side of the animal, which is a lot safer for their skull. But it is very possible, at least the pachycephalosaurs would headbutt each other. Not so much when it comes to the carnivores. Now, these animals were likely feeding on different species of smaller sauropod individuals, like members of the armored Saltosauridae lineage of sauropods. And you also had it where, in some cases, there were different species of nodosaurs in the regions. True ankylosaurs, like Ankylosaurus, likely did not coexist with Carnotaurus. At least we don't really have any evidence for ankylosaurs existing. Now, when it comes to also the ceratopsians or the horned dinosaurs like Triceratops, there doesn't seem to be any evidence for ceratopsians existing in anywhere that Abelisaurs were as well. And this wouldn't just include South America, but it would also include Africa, Australia, and certain parts of Asia like India and Pakistan. You start heading into different areas of northern China, Mongolia, possibly even Russia, you will find smaller species of ceratopsians. So, this is a picture of the Carnotaurus from the movie Dinosaur, and the model itself is really not bad. The problem is that it's massively oversized in the movie. I don't recall the exact measurements, but it would not dwarf many of the species of animals that existed within the movie. In fact, some cases it seemed nearly as large as the Brachiosaurus itself. Um, but this animal at full grown was probably somewhere around 25 to 26 feet in length. They're pushing around 8 meters and may have weighed somewhere around 2 to 2.5 tons. So it was a medium sized species of theropod dinosaur, one of the larger species of bellysaurs, however. It was not a small species of bellysaur, especially for South America. I think, though, the arms are a bit off when it comes to the overall morphology of a realistic Belisor. It's a bit hard to tell when it comes to the fingers. I think the skull is really not bad. I think it's just massively oversized. The teeth might be a bit off, though. Um, there's just something about them. They seem either a little too close together or too knife-like. Belisors in general had quite robust teeth compared to certain lineages of larger predatory dinosaurs, like different um, lineages of the Carnodontosaur family, which was actually somewhat closely related to the Belisors. However, it does seem to be that the Belisors are actually part of the broader lineage of theropods called Ceratosauridae.
Whitney says you have great vids, good vids.
Well, thank you very much. And fellow Archosaur. So when it comes to Carnotaurus specifically, this animal,
You're welcome.
when it comes to at least the tooth structure. Oh, where was it getting? No, I went off course. So Ceratosauridae, which consists of the Belisors, would also consist of other species of Ceratosaurs, such as Ceratosaurus, and another group of theropods, just not hitting me at the moment. But the Abelisaurs, it seemed, first evolved during the early Cretaceous period. So this is pushing somewhere around 130 to 140 million years ago. I think there are possibly instances where they might have occurred earlier in the Mesozoic into the late Jurassic, but they really start exploding in variety towards the early Cretaceous. And they would make it until the very end of the Cretaceous around 66 million years ago. Oh, this is a really good, reconstruction of a Carnotaurus. They made the horns on this animal very reinforced.
I thought it
Also,
looked like it was painted to go to war.
yeah, it does. He's a Celtic, Carnotaur. But when it comes to, um, the arms, they look a lot better. This is what
Oh,
Nabelisaur.
Zero asked, what period is this from?
So, Carnotaurus inhabited Argentina around the same time as T Rex was roaming North America around 68 million years ago, possibly as early as 69 million years ago. So, this is during the last 4 million years of the Cretaceous. And Carnotaurus never came into contact with T Rex or essentially any species of Tyrannosaur. Um, or different species of Spinosaurs. However, it did coexist with different species of Megaraptors. And it's still a debate as to whether or not the Megaraptors are essentially a lineage of Tyrannosauroideae, which consists of the other Tyrannosaurs, or they're just a very closely related group of Coelurosaurs, which is the larger group of theropods that also the Tyrannosaurs, the Dromaeosaurs, modern day birds, or Paravests belong to. Um,
Oh, here's the
Carnotaurs.
little hands.
Yeah, it's not bad though. I think the shoulder area might be a bit large. Also, another issue is that his bottom jaw seems to be a bit off, unless it's just from the angle that I'm seeing it at. That could be what it is. It's not a bad model for an Abelisaur. The horns, it's a bit of a debate. I mean, the picture or the drawing gave them massive horns, and this one it's a bit smaller. I definitely like it where they're larger. This could represent a younger individual as well, or maybe even a female. Okay, a problem with this picture, not talking about the Carnotaurus, but really the pterosaurs in the background. Those are essentially Pteranodon. Pteranodon had already gone extinct at this point in the Cretaceous and doesn't seem, at least we don't have any evidence for Pteranodon being a migratory pterosaur.
Whitney asked, what do they eat?
Carnivores specifically, because Pteranodon likely ate fish, might have scavenged. Carnotaurus was feeding on smaller to medium-sized species of sauropods, like Saltosaurus. Let's bring up a Saltosaurus. Saltasaur. Okay. Who else? Possibly certain species of nodosaurs in the area. Maybe certain species of South American hadrosauromorphs. Hadrosauromorphs are not common in South America. Neither are the nodosaurs. Titanosaurs, which is essentially the broad lineage of dinosaurs, sauropod dinosaurs that the Saltosaurs belong to, as well as Lithostrodiae, were quite common within South America, as well as different parts of Africa into Asia. You could say pretty much every continent, including it looks like Antarctica, um, contained titanosaurs. They were a very successful lineage of sauropod dinosaurs. So are the Macronenian sauropods as well. So, what also makes the Saltosaurs quite distinct, or certain members of Lithostrodiae from other lineages of sauropods,
Is this a Saltasaur?
it could be an older depiction.
Here's a bottom part
Haven't
of one.
seen that before. Yeah. First of all, it looks like the front of his neck is missing, but he would just probably naturally be out of frame. We don't have any evidence though for Saltosaurus containing osteoderms or the hard armor on the front of the tail. And the same thing goes for even the front of the neck. It's really only situated around the core of this animal towards the back end region.
So that's where they
Um,
put it on this one.
Yeah, they seem to have also put it towards the bottom of the neck and the upper part of the tail, but seems to be really concentrated within the back area. I mean, I could always double check where we have, like, where it looks like on different species of saltosaurs or Lithostrodians, the osteoderms are located. Now,
Whitney asked, "What form of defense do they have?"
if we're talking about saltosaurs in general, it's very possible that these animals could rear up on their hind legs and smush the Carnotaur into a pancake.
Wait, what
They
was their weight?
Saltosaurs were a smaller group of sauropod dinosaurs, and Saltosaurus in general was maybe reaching somewhere around 40 feet or 12 meters, and likely not weighing much more than 7 to 8 tons. But if Carnotaurus hunted in packs, which it is possible, we just don't really have any evidence, but there are a wide range of different species of theropods that seem to have hunted in packs, they could possibly take down a full grown Saltosaurus. It would just be a major challenge. Even the neck itself could probably be used as a defense mechanism if they're hitting something that weighs a quarter or a third of themselves. But I'm trying to think of what else besides the armor, but that's only protecting a certain part of the body. They have to be careful considering saltosaurs, like all sauropods, have very small heads compared to their body size. In many cases, most sauropods didn't have a skull that was much larger than a horse's head, so maybe slightly wider. Oh yeah. This is a pretty good reconstruction. I don't think that's Carnotaurus. Is that Picanimasaurus or Quilmasaurus? That's what it is.
But
But
is that head a little big?
could be a saltosaur. Um, um, I don't know.
Who did
I
you
think
say that the size of the head was only the size of a horse?
I was even referring to larger sauropods. It could be like Argentinosaurus, Diplodocus. Though Argentinosaurus, I don't believe we have found the skull of. Diplodocus, we have. Brontosaurus, Apatosaurus, we have found their skulls. Saltosaurus, I don't recall. There's a wide range of different species of sauropods that we have not found the skulls of. So we will compare it to other closely related species within the specific lineage of sauropods that it is theorized to belong to, and come up with a skull structure that would probably fit it.
Wait,
Um,
you just said we don't have a skull, right?
I don't recall us discovering a skull yet of Saltosaurus.
Oh, here's a nice one.
Um, oh, yeah, this is from a much older book. Gosh, what is this? 1970s? 1980s, possibly? But it's still not a bad depiction of a Saltosaur. I don't think, though, the tail would have curved in this way. I don't think Saltosaurus really had the ability to Maybe like the very end of the tail, but even then, this would be probably a bit of an issue for Saltosaur. It has something wrong with its tail. The rest of the body seems okay. I think more of the side of the animal could be armored. It's really just focusing it on the top of the back and even what seems to be the back end of the tail and the bottom of the neck. Maybe we have found skin, interpreting that it might have ended in that area, which is a bit odd. It's not really armoring um the whole neck and it's just stopping right there. I wonder why.
Wait, he asked, do you know why they're called Saltosaurs?
I do not. That's interesting. I don't know if there's like a salt mine in the area or I have no idea. That would be my guess. Certain types of salt deposits.
Oh, that's right. You said they named some of them depending on where they found them.
Depending on where, some dinosaurs are named after certain renowned people. Certain dinosaurs are named after like specific type of ecosystem that's in the area. So it really does vary.
Sometimes it looks like they're naming them just to make it difficult to say their name.
That too. That seems to be a lot more recent. Not that it didn't occur in like the early 1900s or even the late 1800s, but that would really occur with the species name specifically and not the genus. So, what's probably oh, so probably a good example of this would be a dromaeosaur called Deinonychus, and the species name. So Deinonychus is the genus, the species of raptor from early Cretaceous Colorado and Texas. Antorhippus is the name of the species. I don't know what that specifically means either. So I will look into that as well. But besides that, this salt source doesn't seem bad. You could have it where the neck is rearing up towards the sky a bit more, maybe even increase the length of it slightly. But salt source isn't necessarily a very long species of sauropod. They are giving it though quite long limbs in general compared to its body size. But overall, it doesn't look bad. Maybe the forelimbs could have slightly more muscle. It almost looks like that of a thin Asian elephant to an extent, or of like ones you might see on certain like males, depending on where they are in like certain parts of India, maybe during the dry season. Anyway, guess we could go back to Carnotaurus possibly. Oh yeah, the Quimelsaurus. Yeah, I've not seen that drawing before. Let's see. When it comes to yeah, so the pterosaur in the background, Pteranodon, did not coexist with Carnotaurus.
Wait, is this real?
It went extinct like 11 to 12 million years beforehand. This seems to be some statue at a park.
There's one in the background.
That seems to be a ceratopsian. It could be some species of centrosaur. It could be a Pachyrhinosaurus, judging by the frill and the horns on the frill as well. But that's a huge guess. Now, this Carnotaurus is not bad. I think his like calf area and his thighs might be a bit wide. Possibly Carnotaurus. The belly sores in general tend to have like a bit of a sleek sort of build to them, at least when it comes to their legs. So it's very possible these animals were quite quick, so probably capable of running somewhere between 25 to 30 miles per hour, maybe quicker, or pushing around 50 to 55 kilometers per hour. But the skull structure doesn't seem bad. I think the horns could possibly be pointed slightly towards the side a bit more, but we are looking at it from an angle that it's a bit challenging to tell. There's just something off about them. They seem a bit too straight. Now, when it comes to really the neck structure and the skull of a Bellysaurus is really where they put in extra, I guess, reinforcement. Animals like or carnivores like the tyrannosaurs, depending on the species, were putting in muscle in almost every part of the body. I'd say the tail was probably the least muscled. Let's see. Oh gosh, who's he going after? It's not hitting me. It looks very similar to an early Cretaceous species of actually a late Cretaceous species of Nodosaur as well, Edmontonia. But Edmontonia existed over in Alberta, Canada, around 75 million years ago. The interesting thing is that this Carnotaurus, first of all, wouldn't have to run after a Nodosaur. Nodosaurs and Kylosauromorphs in general were very slow. Probably not running much, walking much quicker than 10 miles per hour,
They feathered
or
him.
16 to 17 kilometers per hour. That's another thing. I have not seen, at least in recent times, a Carnotaurus feathered, and specifically along the back of the skull, the back vertebrae, the caudal vertebrae, or along the tail.
Whitney asked, could they eat plants to survive?
The little nodosaur would, so the armored dinosaur. Carnivores would not. They simply did not have teeth that were sharp enough to slice through plant material, and likely their digestive system couldn't handle it either. Now, you do have it where a wide variety of carnivores today. I'm not so sure when it comes to certain species of carnivorous lizards. However, the closer living relatives of dinosaurs, like the crocodilians, so alligators, caimans, garrels, saltwater crocodiles, almost all of them have been observed feeding on vegetation occasionally. Like, especially alligators and crocodiles are notorious for occasionally feeding on fruit, certain species of vegetables. So it's possible maybe during the well, also
Wait,
certain
they're
species of
closer
birds.
related than the birds?
Well, I didn't include the birds. Birds are much more closely related to the theropod dinosaurs because they are theropods, compared to the crocodilomorphs. But when it comes to reptiles, the crocodilians are the closest living relatives of dinosaurs, and animals like Komodo dragons, crocodile monitor lizards. Is that who are the lazy ones? It's not hitting me. But,
The lazy ones.
Gila monsters or the horned lizards over in, like, the, um, southwestern United States, they are very distantly related to the Archosauromorph lineage in general, which is the family of reptiles that dinosaurs descend from. So they're just a completely different, far evolved, branch of Reptiliae.
I put him up because he looks sad.
Um, yeah, he looks like just I'm not sure he was, like, sad, uncertain, or maybe he lost a fight from trying to, like, gain somebody's carcass. But besides that, they gave the animal lips, a very decent head structure. Well, the interesting thing is the horns on this one, they're different, like, especially from that statue, but even the other painting. This is a bit closer to the skull of Carnotaurus that we have discovered, which I believe also has preserved teeth as well. I'd say also when it comes to the teeth of Abelisaurs, they weren't necessarily as long as certain other groups of theropod dinosaurs, but they were just simply very robust.
How is this a Megaraptor?
It is a Megaraptor.
I know, but I don't.
It's not a Dromaeosaur. It's the other lineage. Now, this is a group of theropod dinosaurs. This animal belongs to a group of theropod dinosaurs that did coexist with the Belisaurs.
Real quick, Whitney asked, what were their horns used for?
So it seems to be the with Carnotaurs, well, Abelisaurs in general, because many species of Abelisaurs did contain horns. Not all of them, but certain ones did. But when it comes to Carnotaurs specifically, it's possible they might have not necessarily head-butted each other, but maybe towards the side, like in one of the, depictions where they could have, possibly done a lot of damage to, like, the rib cage, like, maybe during the breeding season or simply fighting over territory or over a carcass. Um, and it's very likely that the horns were used for simply display and to help attract mates during the breeding season. It's a really big question. I'm not exactly sure when it comes to the skin of, well, preserved skin of Carnotaurus that we have discovered, whether or not it's armored like the skin we have found of certain other types of carnivores like Pachycephalosaurs. Um, Pachycephalosaurs, despite them being carnivores, are not theropods. They're another group of ornithischians. But it is a big guess, especially when it comes to the conflict. It is a bit. It is possible that maybe they just weren't designed for contact, but Carnotaur horns are not brittle like certain other lineages of dinosaurs, especially theropod dinosaurs. I'd say probably one of the most reinforced. Now, when it comes to the Megaraptors, this is interesting. They definitely enlarged the thumb claw, which it would have been, but in this case, they almost gave it like a baryonyx. type of morphology. And baryonyx was existing over in England back in the early Cretaceous. Many people tend to, well, those that are somewhat familiar with Megaraptor, they might mix up Megaraptor specifically with Mape. And these are two completely different genre of Megaraptors. Mape existed over in Argentina around 68 million years ago, towards the very end of the Cretaceous. And the Megaraptor existed over in Argentina as well, but around 90 to 92 million years ago. So Mape was a much later descendant. It was also much larger. But Megaraptor itself, the Megaraptor lineage had evolved back in the early Cretaceous, somewhere around 130 to 140 million years ago. And these animals are, if are at least very close relatives of the Tyrannosaurs, and as well the Dromaeosaurs. But when it comes to the Megaraptors, they were probably more dangerous than the Abelisaurs. The Abelisaurs were really putting a lot of their weaponry, or most of it, towards their skull, whereas Megaraptors decided to copy the Spinosaurs to an extent, and even the, I guess, Carchodontosaurs to some point when it comes to their skull, because their skull structure is not exactly meant for crushing bone like certain other lineages of dinosaurs, like the Abelisaurs. That's not a Megaraptor. This is a Troodontid that was found in the past couple of years. I don't remember the name though. Might have been um, some part of the northern hemisphere.
Okay, I pull. Have no idea what I'm pulling.
Yeah, the Megaraptors, at least when it comes to Megaraptor itself, it's a medium-sized species, so pushing somewhere around 20 to 25 or 26 feet in length, probably about 8 meters. There's a huge debate as to really how large this animal is, but probably weighing at least somewhere around 2,000 pounds, or pushing 900 to 1,000 kilograms.
Here you go.
That is a fact. What on earth? There's something weird about this thing. I mean, he is off. But yeah, he also looks like a bit of a lizard to an extent. But it's just the
Said
legs.
Megaraptor.
Uh, yeah, it's just odd. Um, but besides this, what was it? Oh, so Megaraptorids were probably feeding on the sauropods as well, and were probably a much bigger threat compared to the Abelisaurs. Likely competed for food with the Abelisaurs, even when it came to territory to some extent.
This guy needs a manicure.
It was reminding me of some cartoon, but it wasn't hitting me. Um, yeah, that is interesting. I wonder with Megaraptor specifically if there is a huge, um, like keratin or skeletal dimorphism compared to certain other species of Megaraptors, because this is on core with like certain earlier species of Spinosaurs. Here, it's a bit closer. At least when it comes to, the finger morphology, they match a bit more. It's still much larger, but I do like this, reconstruction. These animals, it's interesting. They almost have something, like a physique that compares, or I guess combines, a dromaeosaur, spinosaur to some extent, and, I believe a lineage of dinosaurs that belong to the Avarostra, um, group. Wow, okay. That's an immense specimen of a thumb claw of a Megaraptor. It is interesting. It's like, there's the large dromaeosaurids like a Calibrator, Utahraptor, possibly Dakotaraptor, and then there are the other Coelurosaurs, specifically the Megaraptorids. And it's just which one was more dangerous is really hard to guess. I mean, it's also a bit of a debate as to whether or not these animals would have hunted in packs. Um, but the at least when it comes to the larger dromaeosaurs like Utah raptor, even though it's very possible the animal could jump, I I'm not well, I don't know. I'm sometimes taking away maybe the sickle claws because unlike the dromaeosaurs, these megaraptorids did not pose that distinct sickle claw on their foot. Um, it's very possible they might have been worse. Though still, I mean, a very distinct lineage of theropod dinosaurs. It is interesting. Despite these animals being members of the Coelurosaur family and um, also being closely related to the dromaeosaurs, many reconstructions of megaraptorids are not shown with feathers, which I find quite odd. I think in more recent years, they've certain paleo artists have been adding more plumage to their overall body, but it's just um, kind of odd. Okay, so heading to another lineage of dinosaurs as well as to another part of the world in a different time. This would have been over in Alberta, Canada, around 75 million years ago during the late Campanian stage of the Cretaceous. And this is Parasaurolophus, walkeri. Walkeri being the species of Parasaurolophus, because we have found a few different species of Parasaurolophus. But this is the largest species. And this animal is interesting with this depiction here. It's possible that the specific bag, which I need to look into what specifically this is referred to on different species of birds, especially like certain Galapagos birds that inflate a large bag during the breeding season. Um, it's possible they might have had this characteristic. Now, the problem with this Parasaurolophus is that he seems far too skinny. He also seems a bit short, like in length. I think he could be a bit longer. Parasaurolophus could reach somewhere around 30 feet, 30 to 35 feet in length, so probably around 11 meters, and weigh somewhere between 5 to 7 tons. 7 tons would be a pretty large Parasaurolophus, but
Well, the next one's gonna be worse then.
now it is interesting it's showing exhaust. It's very likely that would have occurred considering Alberta, Canada, much of Canada, Alaska, back in the late Cretaceous would have experienced many cold events. Where'd he go?
I put him back.
Oh,
You were
oh,
talking about the
you went to the other picture.
Sure.
Yeah, this one, well, it's a model, but he is yeah, very skinny. Also, the head it kind of resembles certain reconstructions of Parasaurolophus from the 1960s, 1970s. Um, yeah, and doesn't have the more like sort of taller face, especially towards the back of the skull. What is interesting is that they did add osteoderms along like the tail and the back, but we don't really have any evidence for Parasaurolophus containing osteoderms in that specific area. There are certain species of hadrosaurs, like possibly Edmontosaurus, maybe even Varspoldia, that might have contained that specific characteristic, but doesn't seem to be the case with Parasaurolophus. Also, the crest. The crest would also probably be wider, maybe even a bit longer, and just more robust as well.
Okay, this guy just looks happy.
This is not a bad reconstruction of a more paleo accurate Parasaurolophus face and as well the neck. They're
Pretty s
definitely giving him quite a muscular neck, but they
Well,
also added the osteoderms.
that's what I was gonna say.
I might have to double check the osteoderms too. But when it comes to Parasaurolophus, it is one of the um, different species of hadrosaurs that would have created large or loud, low frequency sounds, at least to the other animals in the region that could hear in low frequency. Humans, certain species of mammals cannot hear in low frequency. It's much like elephants, and when they distribute rumbles across the landscape, usually communicating with other members of the herd that might be several miles away, or simply other herds, or when they're trying to, especially females, attract a male that's a certain distance away when they're in heat.
Why is this one missing it?
Very possible that might have been the same case with Parasaurolophus herds. I think this was a juvenile that was discovered. It might have been of a different species, but I believe This was of at least a juvenile Parasaurolophus. So it does seem with many species of dinosaurs that would have later in life created large horns or large crests in this case. They probably would have started out sort we have evidence for them starting out very small.
And it has osteoderms all over it.
Yeah, it does. Also, not just on the back, but even around the side and the neck.
Maybe it's just freckled.
Yeah, it would be very well. That would be interesting. It does seem to be at least with certain long-necked species of dinosaurs. Well, I'll get into that later. But we do have preserved skin of certain species of hadrosaurs, especially in Montosaurus, where it seems to be was it Montosaurus or another species? Might have been related to Montosaurus, but it does seem to have somewhat armored skin. Um, Also, they would have been much leaner, or in some cases, skinnier when they were younger as well, depending on the hadrosaur species. This does seem to be the case somewhat with Parasaurolophus, and probably closely related species such as Saurolophus. Lambeosaurus is a bit distantly related, considering it belongs to a different family of hadrosaurs, Lambeosauridae, and not Saurolophini. Um, see who else. Oh, so yeah, this is a really good depiction of Parasaurolophus, though this is a smaller species of Parasaurolophus. This is Parasaurolophus chytrocrystatus, which had a much smaller crest compared to its body size. I think it was originally theorized to be simply a female Parasaurolophus walkeri, and more thorough analysis on the skulls morphology as well as the rest of the body indicated that this animal is very likely its own genus and species. Specific species. So the animal on the
They're
left.
thicker.
Oh yeah, they actually added weight to these animals. Hadrosaurs are known as like the cows of the Cretaceous, so are essentially the lawnmowers. So constantly gorging on the different species of ferns, flowers, and shrubs within the area, possibly munching on conifers now and then. But that is a species of Tyrannosaur on the left, and also seems to have a bit of plumage on it. It, hmm, it's possibly a younger Albertosaurus. Could be a Gorgosaurus, but seems to have more of an Albertosaurus skull morphology, especially looking at like the horn structures in front of the eyes, but also the distinct longer, just elongated skull structure, but that curvature as well around the upper and bottom jaw. Also, in looking at his arm length, he's got very long arms though. Albertosaurus did have longer arms compared to its body size than T Rex, not by much, but it was definitely very obvious. And when it comes to the legs of this animal, they're going to be a bit leaner compared to T Rex, or at least not as bulky. So these animals were much better equipped for running. And considering certain species of animals that they fed on, like the hadrosaurs, were also able to run as well. Especially Parasaurolophus, seems that this animal would have been quite quick too, probably pushing 25 to 30 miles an hour, depending on the species, or somewhere around maybe 50 kilometers per hour. So, also when it comes to the hadrosaurs in general, even Parasaurolophus, except Parasaurolophus isn't as commonly found as certain other species, it's very possible they might have roamed in herds of well over 80 individuals at least. Some cases, there are certain theories of thousands of these animals. It's just that for how large these creatures are and how many different species would be coexisting with each other, that just seems to be a bit of an exaggeration. But there are just certain fossil preservation instances where there are this many individuals clustered amongst one another. The question is, was it simply due to a flood and it just happened to wipe out several herds, or were they truly this numerous? Was it just there was it just simply a very successful time for these animals, and they were able to the ecosystems were able to sustain this many herbivores weighing over 4 tons? It certainly is possible.
Can I
Um,
clear them?
oh yeah, I guess you can close them. What was the other thing? I was getting at something with the Parasaurolophus. Um, it's right before I was mentioning the die-off. Oh, I think I was just talking about the herd size. I mean, at least probably 40 to 80 individuals. Okay, so we have moved further back into the Mesozoic era, as well as a different part of the world as well. More of like a neighbor, but so this is Stegosaurus, and it did not coexist with T Rex or Triceratops, the previous dinosaurs as well, or like Parasaurolophus. This animal was living over in Colorado around 150 million years ago. And it was first discovered by Arthur Lakes and H.C. Benton in 1850. Fragmentary remains of the plates, as well as certain tail or caudal vertebrae and certain postcranial or skull fragments, were discovered of this animal. It wouldn't be, I believe, until around 1877 or 1878 that the paleontologist, I think it was Edward Drinker Cope, that described the genus. And so, um, how specifically this became one of the more popular dinosaur species, I don't know. But um, species of dinosaurs in the 1800s that were described by either Othniel Charles Marsh and Edward Drinker Cope um, tend to have much more popularity. Really, because those are some of the most world or some of the most renowned paleontologists there are, or there were.
Yeah, they're
They're,
dead.
they're, they're still renowned. Will be for a long time. So,
I just like the painting.
yeah, yeah, it does. This is a pretty good depiction. This is possibly, though, I think most people think that there's just one Stegosaurus species, but there's at least two. Now, technically, there's a lineage of dinosaurs named Stegosauridae. This consists of well over 35 different species of Stegosaurs. But Stegosaurus itself has Stegosaurus steniops and Stegosaurus ungulatus, with Stegosaurus steniops probably being the somewhat more renowned species, except certain people might confuse it with the larger species ungulatus because it simply has larger plates on its back. Stegosaurus steniops had smaller plates, but this animal tends to be shown in more um, I guess paleo pop culture to an extent, or certain toys, documentaries, movies. It really depends. When dinosaurs roamed America, the Discovery 2000 or 2001 or 2002 documentary, I think it was Stegosaurus ungulatus. But focusing on these animals, the way it's standing right here is certainly possible. The animal what did have the ability to rear up on its hind legs, probably use its tail for balance. And this would have been the case with many species of dinosaurs, especially the herbivores, because um the theropods could use their tail for somewhat support. It was really, I mean, when sitting on their pelvis bone, that's like their pelvis bone really is what supported their weight when they were sitting or somewhat laying down. But when it came to the stegosaurs in general, the most, this is probably the most flexible dinosaur that there is. Just when it comes to the overall flexibility of the different bones, I need to do just simply a bit more research into why specifically they're so flexible. But when it comes to a wide variety of different species of predators, as well as other herbivores like Triceratops, even the sauropods, Stegosaurus is much more flexible. That's why this animal there is literally evidence for um, Stegosaurus specifically being able to hit the pelvis bone of a carnivorous dinosaur called Allosaurus. And really, the only way for that to occur is if it had a tail that was capable of moving in all sorts of different motions. So even animals like this unfortunate Ceratosaurus had to be extremely careful when fighting a Stegosaurus. And there's a lot of instances where um, documentaries or even, um, I guess, a lot of paleo artists will depict one Ceratosaurus going after a Stegosaur. I just don't think this animal is capable of taking on Stegosaurus on its own. Considering Stegosaurus steniops itself was probably somewhere around 25 to 30 feet in length or pushing 9 meters, and probably weighed somewhere around 4 to 5 tons. And Stegosaurus ungulatus was likely even larger.
Is this a lizard stegosaurus?
Think this is Charles R. Knight's Stegosaurus, except yeah, he added two extra rows of thacomizers. I don't know why. I'm not sure if it was guessed as to whether or not Stegosaurus had this many spikes. It's not the only interpretation to show this many rows of thagomizers. But also, when it comes to the neck structure, a lot of older reconstructions of stegosaurs would give this animal a very wide neck. It would be a similar case with a wide range of different species of herbivores. Even different species of iguanodontids would have pretty wide necks given to their depictions. Who else? Ankylosaurs to an extent, but ankylosaurs would have somewhat wide necks, but it would be matched with their heightened core, at least in former representations. But this Stegosaurus, also the beak is a bit off. It should be a bit smooth and not like that of a certain species of vulture or eagle.
Oh, that's why I was thinking this looked like a actual beak.
Well, also the other thing when it comes to Stegosaurus's skull in general, there was a wide range of debate as to whether or not it just had um, a very long, like, mouth interior, at least where it could, open its mouth to the extent of, like, certain species of theropod dinosaurs, like, where you could clearly see all the teeth from the side. There seems to be more, agreement of where this animal would have had just a massive area of cheek muscles to essentially, concealing the teeth or protecting the teeth, and really only the, um beak was capable of closing, or at least opening to where you could see, like, just that part of the mouth. Also, it is true that this animal had one of the smallest brains compared to its body size of any species of dinosaur. Though I would say in many cases the sauropods probably had smaller brains, but there is a bit of a difference between the brain the size of a golf ball, being the sauropods in many instances, and then having a brain the size of a walnut. So, um, okay, let's see. This is probably ungulatus, but I don't know. The plates, at least towards the front, seem possibly a bit small. Ungulatus seems to have had large plates that were pretty similar in size to each other. In this case, it really only seems to be maybe three plates that are in close proximity to just height and even width. This also seems to be a depiction from possibly like the 1990s, even possibly earlier. Stegosaurus also would not have dragged its tail on the ground. Also, when it comes to the overall stature of this animal, it's not going to have it where it's a bit of like a hill, not even like that of a camel, like many older reconstructions, kind of like even Charles R. Knight's. Still good painting, but he gave it, and as well as a wide variety of other paleo artists and paleontologists in general, they would give Stegosaurus a bit of like a hill sort of depiction. So, in reality, Stegosaurus, like many species of medium sized herbivorous dinosaurs, would have had more like a horizontal sort of stature. So, being quite even with itself. However, Stegosaurus did have much smaller forelimbs compared to its hind limbs. This is also something that we see in certain species of ceratopsians later on into the Cretaceous. At this point in the Jurassic, ceratopsians are small and in many cases bipedal. So the early ancestors to Triceratops had just evolved.
Can I clear him?
Yep. So Stegosaurus was likely just feeding on different species of ferns. Flowers have not evolved yet. Maybe even going after certain species of conifers and certain types of shrubs. It also seems to be that this animal probably withstood a lot of different dry seasons, considering the deposits where it is from kind of indicate that There were pretty harsh dry seasons during the part of the Jurassic and the region that inhabited within North America. So, I believe it was discovered adjacent to Morrison, Colorado, so back in 1850. Okay, so we have branched upon this. This is a really thin individual, but this is supposed to supposedly depict an iguanodon, which was named back in 1825. It's not hitting me at the moment, the specific paleontologist, but I believe there were a wide range of different paleontologists back in the early 1800s that were helping describe this specific species. Iguanodon is quite, it also comes from a different part of the Mesozoic as well as a different part of the world. This animal is from the early Cretaceous period, around 135 million years ago, and has been found in areas of England, as well as Belgium, Germany, Spain, France, possibly Switzerland, and maybe Austria. So when it comes to Iguanodon, it pretty much dominated Europe. And the animal, this seems to sort of replicate a smaller species that existed at around the same time, but over in North America, Decododon. This could probably be a Decododon, but not Iguanodon. Here, he seems to have buffed up a bit more. This Iguanodon, as you can see, has um, slightly more muscular forelimbs and very large thighs. I think his legs might be a bit short, or specifically just his shin region. Iguanodon had quite um, decently like long legs compared to its body size. And even the tail, I think you could possibly add a little more muscle to the tail. Iguanodon was very robust in general.
There you go. Here's a robust one.
Yeah, he is. I think the osteoderms might be a bit odd for the back of the neck. It's weird though. When it comes to this reconstruction, it's stiff and it's kind of it is fairly off. I don't think the hands look good. It looks like a bit of a hoof when it comes to the front, like index, middle, and ring finger. And then yes, it would just have a extremely small pinky, and then the thumb spike. So that is essentially its thumb. And then its later descendants would lose their thumbs. It is a big question as to why evolution decided, okay, we're gonna make you not completely defenseless, but we're going to take away a lot of your major asset being your thumb spike. Technically, we're gonna make it smaller, and then eventually it just dissipates. But not megalodon, iguanodon did contain its thumb. That's interesting.
If Megalodon had a thumb, that'd be pretty funny.
Yeah, it'd be concerning too. You just stab any whale that he wanted to come into contact with. However, he did have competition with a giant toothed whale back in the Pliocene epoch about 3 million years ago. So that would have helped come into handy.
Wait, was that the sperm whale?
Yeah, it's sort of. Technically, that is what it's somewhat referred to as.
Oh, but it's not actually.
It's its own lineage of whales. It's not hitting me at the moment what cetacean it is. Cetaceans being the family of marine mammals that consist of the whales. There are also the pinnipeds, but pinnipeds only refer to sea lions, seals, and not whales in general. Sometimes people will mix it up because they're mammals. Okay, so let's see, where was I with this guy? Okay, so yeah, this animal existed in different parts of Western Europe around 135 million years ago, also feeding on some of the earliest species of flowers and ferns. Also possibly munching on different species of shrubs, like many of the other species of guanodontids in Europe as well as Asia. This animal would later evolve into the different species of hadrosaurs and hadrosaur morphs that would dominate the rest of the early, well, I guess the late Cretaceous. Hadrosaur morphs more of the early Cretaceous and early late Cretaceous, but hadrosaur morphs also exist until the very end, which is bit odd. And this animal was described by I think Gillian Mantle around 1825. There was also, I believe, another English and an Austrian paleontologist that helped describe this animal too.
Is that any better?
Um, that's not a bad Iguanodon. I think this is from some time back, but it's just depicting it as being or marching along the floodplains of early Cretaceous Belgium.
Yeah, this is a
So
strange iguanodon.
it's very realistic. Yeah. What could we be? It's like somebody took a Dicynodont from the Triassic period around 215 million years ago, so a proto mammal, mixed it with some early Archosauromorph, or maybe even like some early relative of the crocodilomorphs, like Proterosuchus. Gosh, what else? And some just odd sauropod. Like maybe somebody took Volcanodon or some short-necked individual. If you're referring to a sauropod, I don't know. It's got a lot of problems. Nothing like a sauropod, and definitely nothing like a iguanodontid or a hadrosaur. He doesn't belong with any group of dinosaurs. So yeah, he is rejected. So iguanodon, let's see. Um, it's this animal also would have walked and likely ran on its hind legs as well, though it did have the ability to be quadrupedal. There were certain lineages of later iguanodontids, especially members of the elasmerian lineage of iguanodontids, that would not have the ability to support any of their weight on their forelimbs, especially animals like Metabarosaurus, it seems, to an extent. This is also a case that we see in not just iguanodontids, but if you go further back into the Mesozoic, like during the Triassic period, or even the early Jurassic with the prosauropods or the earlier sauropodomorphs, certain species did not have the ability to walk on all fours, like certain species of Plateosaurus, which has also been discovered in Europe as well as northeastern North America, being Greenland. But also Plateosaurus has been found in different areas of Germany, Belgium, Switzerland. Let's see. Who else do we have here? Oh, I think also when referring to the stegosaurs from the Jurassic, I think many people tend to associate stegosaurs if they have heard of them existing in the Jurassic as just simply dying off at the end of the Jurassic period around 145 million years ago. But the stegosaurs would still continue until the towards the end of the early Cretaceous. So somewhere around 105 to 110 million years ago, the stegosaurs mysteriously disappear. Iguanodontids, however, would evolve into the hadrosaurs and survive until the Mesozoic era ended. But that is odd with the stegosaurs.
Clear?
Yeah. Um, yeah, that one's far off, fairly off. Okay, so this is animal is from another part of the world and a different time. So this is Pachycephalosaurus model from Prehistoric Planet, and this animal inhabited Montana around 67 million years ago, so towards the end of the Mesozoic, and it would have coexisted with dinosaurs like Triceratops and Kylosaurus, T-Rex, and it was originally assumed that the Pachycephalosaurus in general, so this is a group of dinosaurs, but even Pachycephalosaurus were herbivores. So they simply would have fed on different species of ferns, flowers, maybe certain types of fruit, but more in-depth analysis to their their tooth structure indicated that these animals were not really capable of slicing through plant material, much like the different species of theropods. I think another reason as to why this animal was not recognized as a species of theropod is because it doesn't belong to the theropod or saurischian lineage of dinosaurs at all. It's a member of the Ornithischian lineage of dinosaurs, and more specifically, the Megacephalian lineage of dinosaurs, which is these are essentially the closest relatives to the ceratopsians. So what's going on with the Pachycephalosaurs is what was somewhat going on with the Therizinosaurs a couple decades back, maybe even actually further into the 90s. But um, the Therizinosaurs are a group of theropod dinosaurs with the longest claws compared to their body size of any species of dinosaur, their group. And they were assumed because of that to be carnivorous. But when you look at their skull structure and you look at their rib cage too, like it's extremely wide. This is not really something that you see on a carnivore. Carnivores have many cases, not as wide of rib cages because they don't have to have all those microbes digesting the plant material that the herbivores would need. This also seems to be the case with the Pachycephalosaurs too. But really, when you're looking at the dental structure, kind of like what we were seeing with the Therizinosaurs, oh, wait a second. Okay, I think I mixed that up. But basically, we thought the Therizinosaurs were carnivores, and they turned out to be herbivores. These animals we thought were herbivores, they turned out to be carnivores.
That's what you were saying.
Oh, okay. Well, basically, it is a bit of a debate as to what specifically Pachycephalosaurus would have hunted. It doesn't necessarily have the immense serrated teeth that you see on pretty much all the other theropod dinosaurs, but
This
um,
one doesn't have a beak.
no, Pachycephalosaurs don't really have beaks. There's like a bit of a sharp ending to their skull structure. Yeah, you could somewhat call that a beak, but their teeth were pretty much towards the front. Um, Not really something that you see with animals with beaks or that contain beaks, but you could somewhat call it that. Um, what's another thing? Oh yeah, this is one of the few species of um predatory dinosaurs that also had all five fingers.
I don't know why that sounded funny.
At least when it comes to the predatory dinosaurs from the Triassic period, there were certain species that I don't know. I mean, that's very early in their evolution. Maybe I'm referring to like certain earlier prosauropods. But also one of the reasons I think this is because when you look at the Ornithischian lineage in general, most of these dinosaurs had all five fingers on their forehands or forearms.
Oh, wait a minute. Here are the teeth.
Oh yeah, that's a pretty authentic skull specimen of a Pachycephalosaurus. They do not necessarily have the immense. Well, actually, they did have somewhat long horns surrounding the dome, so the large reinforced bone on the top of their skull, compared to a wide variety of other species of dinosaurs. The question is exactly what was this animal feeding on? The largest Pachycephalosaurus, being Pachycephalosaurus that we have discovered, seemed to be somewhere around 15 feet in length or pushing 5 meters, maybe weigh somewhere around 8 to 900 pounds or pushing around 400 kilograms.
Like, how
So,
many are there?
there aren't many species of Pachycephalosaurs that have been discovered, maybe 12 to 15 different species. We've also sort of cut off a few like Dracorex and Stygimoloch because their skull morphology, as well as I think the rest of their anatomy, basically can correlate. They show a lot of or too much similarity with Pachycephalosaurus to not be just a juvenile specimen of Pachycephalosaurus. So, this animal went through many morphological changes as it grew. Um, but the question is, what exactly is it eating? It might have had a somewhat omnivorous lifestyle. You could have had it where Pachycephalosaurus might have been feeding on certain species of fruits that existed at the time, but also feeding on different species of amphibians, mammals, so our own ancestors, and as well reptiles, maybe even earlier species of birds. I'm trying to think of what else, but probably scavenging too. They might have even had a somewhat seasonal diet, but at this point in the Cretaceous, it had kind of reached a bit of a warming event, and dry seasons and wet seasons were a bit more common, so it wasn't as cool as slightly earlier in the Cretaceous.
I thought you said they didn't actually do this.
No, it's possible that they could have. It just seems to be that when it comes to the skin specimens that we have discovered of Pachycephalosaurs, that they are somewhat armored. They do have more of like a reinforced sort of scalage. So that might have been to help minimize the damage of their impact, but it's very possible they could have headbutted each other. We might have evidence for specifically certain preserved domes showing damage, like from headbutting. Um, but what's the other thing? Oh yeah, they also were strictly bipedal. Um, see, when it comes to the Pachycephalosaurs also had a pretty short reign. They first evolved like I think somewhere around the same time as some of the earliest hadrosaurs, so pushing somewhere around 80 to 82 million years ago during the early Campanian stage of the Cretaceous, and then going extinct towards the end of the Mesozoic. And it seems to be that they pretty much were all species of carnivores. They were just not really going after dinosaurs, though it certainly is possible now and then they might have, especially hatchlings, maybe even going after their eggs occasionally.
Can I clear them?
Yep. Yeah, I mean, those were good reconstructions. These seem a bit like devilish, but maybe not devilish, just because certain species of dinosaurs are renowned for having a more like devilish look to an extent, but they still look like their own dinosaur appearance.
Okay, this guy
Not
looks
sure.
happy.
I don't think really any dinosaur looks like a devil. That's a toy.
Yeah, but he
But
looks happy.
yeah, he does have that sort of accumulation. Oh, okay. So we're going on to Brachiosaurus. All right. So this is older. This is a bit of an older depiction. I think probably 1990s. But Brachiosaurus was discovered, I believe, by Elmer S. Riggs back in 1903 in the Colorado River Valley of western Colorado. And this animal inhabited the region around 153 million years ago during the late Jurassic period. So probably roamed different parts of Utah, Wyoming, Montana, maybe even the Dakotas, and was likely feeding on explicitly different species of conifers in the area. It was one of the tallest dinosaurs to exist, but it wasn't the tallest. This animal could probably reach a height of somewhere around 40 feet or pushing 12 meters, and it had a length of probably 72 to 80 feet or pushing somewhere around 20 to 25 meters, or 25 to, yeah, somewhere around there. This is not a bad model of a Brachiosaurus. I think its tail might be lacking a bit of musculature. Now, what sets Brachiosaurus apart from many other lineages or other species of dinosaur in general is that it has much longer forelimbs compared to the hind limbs. And it is also a member of Brachiosauridae, which first evolved somewhere around 155 to 160 million years ago. And then they would all of a sudden disappear about 93 million years ago towards the beginning of the late Cretaceous, which is about 2 million years after many species of Titanosaur went extinct over in South America, certain parts of Africa. You could say Australia too. And then that would even occur with different species of diplodocids. They were also going extinct at this point. But then there were like these Somphospondylii lineage that would cling on for a bit longer.
Okay, this thing looks like somebody cut its face off.
Oh, and Brachiosaurus probably weighed somewhere around 30 to 35 tons. Yeah, sort of, but I'd say Brachiosaurus had probably one of the more robust skull structures
Not here.
of, well, sauropods in general. But I really don't mind this depiction.
Where's
But
his face?
yeah, it's right there. You know, he's I mean,
How
it's
could that
okay.
thing eat?
Though his forelimbs have a bit of an issue. What this guy looks like? Some
A
I don't know.
dog?
Oh, I was gonna say some type of a toy or maybe even a giraffe to an
Plushie. It looks
extent.
like a plushie.
Yeah, it does. But his legs are weird here. I don't know what this is. And what's with the back of the tail over here? It's curved. And this is what? Okay, the neck is completely unaligned with like the what on earth? The neck's like extended into the main core of the body. And a tiny chest. Okay, this thing's got issues. Um, you know what he looks like? Sort of like a duck or a certain penguin over here. Anyway,
Okay, I'm gonna bring another thing up with issues.
um, yeah, okay, seemed to be a couple toys and a lot of reconstructions when it came to Brachiosaurus for some reason, even though we already knew for some time it's quite a robust species of sauropod, would depict it as skinny, which is odd. Though the youngster seems to have a bit more muscle on it. I mean, I know that's just the toy, but still odd. Um, okay, there are also a lot of instances, I'm just say this real quick, where palm trees are depicted with sauropods. There's a wide variety of different species of palm tree today that were not around during the Mesozoic era. There were palm trees, they did exist, but not all different species. Um, Also, they're likely feeding on different species of conifers. Palms are really hard to digest. This is a Jurassic World evolution brachiosaur. I don't even think it's like the Jurassic Park model. I would say when it comes to the leg structure, they're better than the
At least
what
it
we
has
saw
muscle on it.
beforehand. Yeah, and also the forelimbs. You can see they're much taller compared to the hind limbs. The tail, I think, is a bit small. Brachiosaurus though didn't have a long tail, but um, it still would have had more muscle on it. The neck
R
is has issues, and so does the skull to an extent. First of all,
R7 uh plays please say Gunnar Biven is his favorite brachie reconstruction.
I don't know who that is.
Mm. See if I
It's like a
can
paleo artist or a certain model. I mean, that would be it. Well, first of all, also when it comes to Brachiosaurus, when it comes to the nostrils of this animal, and it would occur with virtually every species of sauropod, is that the nostrils would be towards the front of the snout. Also, like pretty much all of the different species of dinosaurs, for some reason. Well, I think it was to possibly like the theory was originally with Brachiosaurus, especially with certain Charles R. Knight depictions, is
Is
that
this it?
the it would use as like a snorkel, but that wouldn't be the case. It just seems to be another picture.
No,
No, no,
I'm
no,
asking
that's
no, I'm asking the
no, this is the
R7 plays it.
this is the Patagon Titan from Jurassic World Evolution.
Oh, well, I'm trying to pull the person. That's what came up when I did it.
Also, it's possible that this is an invalid genus when it comes to Patagon Titan. This animal, if it existed, was over in Argentina around 98 million years ago during the early late Cretaceous period. It is a very distant relative of the Brachiosaurus. Same thing would occur for Argentinosaurus, the wide range of Titanosauri in general, which Brachiosaurus was not a part of. Um, let's see. When it came to Brachiosaurus, at least on defense mechanisms, the animal would likely rear up on its hind legs to smush any of the allosaurs or megalosaurs in the region, as well as ceratosaurs.
And then R7 said, "I like the prior extinction brachie model."
Yeah, I'm not familiar. I'm model. I'm guessing this is some type of a
I'm assuming isn't extinction one of the games?
uh the only thing I can think of when it comes to extinctions is possibly Ark. I'm not too familiar with this. I'm guessing there's other games there, or if this is a game.
Is it a game?
Um, yeah, I guess when it comes to brachiosaurs, I'm trying to think of also a model specifically. Well, besides that, I guess just referring to, like, more specifically about Brachiosaurus ultrox being the actual species. This animal is also heavily based let's go to another Brachiosaur, like, picture.
Roblox game?
Oh, I have no idea. Um,
What do you want me to pull up?
I'm yeah, maybe another Brachiosaurus picture. Like, is there one? Well, okay. Uh, these seem to be like some sort of claymation or maybe not claymation, but something else. Yeah, the necks are still quite skinny. You could say the overall body in general. Now, when it comes to and the nostrils, they're far too high up the skull. When it comes to Brachiosaurus in general, this animal is actually based off of Giraffatitan to a major extent, which we do have specimens of Brachiosaurus. But it's just that I think it's a bit more complete when it comes to Giraffatitan, which is a species of Brachiosaur that inhabited Tanzania or East Africa around the same time. So about 153 million years ago during the late Jurassic. But it was slightly larger, probably reaching somewhere around 80 to 85 feet in length, or pushing about 25 to 27 meters, and probably weighed 35 to 40 tons. Okay, so this is over at some park. When it comes to Brachiosaurus and osteoderms, I don't believe we have any evidence for osteoderms occurring along the back of the neck or even the core of the animal, as well as the caudal vertebrae, or referring to the tail. Um, Also, when it's curving its neck like this, probably would have been somewhat even. But aside from that, I think the legs are a bit too similar in size, but the forelegs might be taller. This just seems to be another one of the things. Well, not things, but
You
one
know,
of
the
the
things.
depictions. Okay, the teeth. Um, it's interesting. It's like they're somewhere between a sauropod tooth and a theropod tooth to an extent, but still, sauropod teeth are quite distinct. They're somewhat leaf shaped.
R7 then said, I think Bracky was 50 tons round off, and Giraffe Titan is lighter, but slightly taller.
Um, I might have to simply double check with Giraffatitan. But Brachiosaurus, when it comes to the 50-ton, I think it's certainly possible it could reach that weight, but that would be the upper limit. I think just simply due to like the 50-ton theory, or the statement when it came to the weight of Brachiosaurs, was simply also coming up before it was renowned that sauropods had hollow bones, and then that's when we saw a lot of weight deductions with animals like Brachiosaurus, as well as a wide variety of other species, like even Sauroposeidon. Um, so that's why I'm at least guessing the 30 to 35-ton realm. That just seems to be the 50-ton limit, just like in the upper scale for Brachiosaurus, if it could reach that maximum size. But looking at this specific model, it's somewhat similar to the Jurassic Park model as well. I think there could be a lot more or some more muscle when it comes to the neck structure. Also, when it comes to the forelimbs and the hind limbs, I think they're better, but still something seems a bit off. And I think I can see his rib cage slightly. You shouldn't be able to see a dinosaur's rib cage. That would indicate that's starving. I think also the stomach might be somewhat lower to the ground, but if anything, not much further.
Why does this guy look like he has a lizard face?
This is supposed to replicate a brontosaurus, not a
Oh,
brachiosaurus. Very distinct morphology from Brachiosaurus. The skulls of Apatosaurus or Brontosaurus in general is much longer, or even just not as tall compared to a Brachiosaurus. Very distinct. These are also Brontosaurs. One just seems to be much larger towards the front. It almost has like an Apatosaurus sort of accumulation to it, because Apatosaurus was a bit more heavily built, and was likely feeding on, well, very similar species of vegetation. So likely just going after different types of shrubs, maybe even certain types of conifers. Also, when it comes to the horizontal neck structure, it's very likely with the brontosaurs and apatosaurs in general, they had vertical neck structures, slightly different but similar to the um, brachiosaurs like Brachiosaurus, Giraffatitan, Sauropsidon. Okay, this is the Walking with Dinosaurs 1999 series Walking with Dinosaurs Brachiosaurus, which I think even for the time, like it's a good model. I do like it, but it's just it even had issues when it came to the neck musculature, and also when it came to the legs, they always seemed a bit thin, and the tail seemed a bit stiff and also too low to the ground as well. It should be much higher up.
I like these old ones. Oops, too bad. Hold on.
This is the Charles R. Knight picture that I was referring to earlier, when it was assumed at the time that Brachiosaurus would have, as well as I believe certain other species of sauropods, would have used their nostrils, which was at first theorized to be located towards the top of their skull, as snorkels, but that does not seem to be the case. Oh, yeah, there's also one in the background on his hind limbs. Also, it also seems that the theory also was they might have fed on aquatic vegetation. Also, the water would have helped support their weight. And, the dinosaurs, there's a lot of evidence for these animals to efficiently have walked on land as well as ran, depending on the certain species. Sauropods, in many cases, probably didn't run, probably would quickly walk.
You want me to clear 'em?
Yep. Is there somebody else? All right. This specific individual. Okay, so this animal is also from another part of the world as well as another time, much later to the Mesozoic, a bit further north. Though Alberta is not exactly adjacent to Colorado, but Alberta, Canada, around 75 million years ago, is when a species of ceratopsian called Styracosaurus roamed the area. And this animal is, like I think I misstated it with or confused it with another lineage of ceratopsians. This is not a chasmosaur, which is a lineage of ceratopsians that Triceratops belongs to. This is a centrosaur. And Styracosaurus was a medium-sized species of ceratopsid overall, probably reaching somewhere around 20 to 22 feet in length. They were pushing 6 to 6.8 meters and probably weighed somewhere around 2 to 2.5 tons. It did coexist with a wide variety of other species of ceratopsids in the region. Oh, yeah, this is not a bad depiction. They're definitely giving it a much thicker neck structure. There's also something. Oh, I think they're giving it extremely long nasal horns, which is very likely. I mean, especially when you add on the keratin, the same substance that your fingernails and hair are made out of. It would add in some length as well, and all of the horns would have been his horns, his claws, the beak would have been covered in an extra layer of keratin. This animal was likely a very dangerous adversary to the different species of theropods it coexisted with, which would include different species. Well, not just theropods. If this was the time, possibly was. If it came into contact with certain large crocodilomorphs like Deinosuchus in the region, which was a 30 to 35-foot long species of crocodilomorph, or pushing 9 to 11 meters, probably weighed somewhere around 4 to 5 tons, maybe slightly larger. But Styracosaurus also had to deal with different species of theropods, as well as dromaeosaurs. So in this instance, yeah, Styracosaurus is a bit of an issue. Well, no, I mean that fourth toe might be blunt. Hmm. I'm just looking at the back feet. There's something off about his toe on the right hand or the left hand hind foot. If you're standing in the same way as it. Um, at least when it comes to the skull structure, it doesn't seem bad. Though here's the thing. That's a T-Rex in the background. T-Rex did not coexist with Styracosaurus. There were smaller species of Tyrannosaurs like Albertosaurus that would have coexisted with this animal. I believe Styracosaurus was found in the Dinosaur Park Formation over in Alberta, Canada. This isn't a bad model of a Styracosaurus. Just feeding on a smaller type of conifer, possibly. I don't think that's a shrub, but he's what I like about it is depicting him and the ankylosaur, possibly a Euoplocephalus, roaming through a fern prairie. I mean, it looks very good. Fern prairies would have existed throughout the whole Mesozoic era. So you would have had different species of sauropods, iguanodontids, ceratopsids feeding amongst these fern prairies. So essentially, before the grasslands would evolve much later into the Cenozoic era.
Oh, here's an old one.
Oh, this could be from like 1914, maybe slightly earlier. Was it the Lost World? Though I don't think this one or these models specifically. I think the Lost World model might have been slightly better, but this was back when they were keeping their tails pretty low to the ground, just simply dragging. And like the stegosaurs, many of these herbivores had a bit of like a mountain or a hill sort of a stature to their core,
This
which
guy
caused a
looks
lot
like
of
a
issues.
rhino.
Yeah, to some extent. It's definitely an older depiction of a Styracosaur, but not. Well, is it? Maybe it's new. They just
No.
decided to copy that older representation, which is very possible. I mean, I like looking at the older models of the dinosaurs as well. Even when you look at prehistoric mammals, like the original mammoth is um quite odd, but it also looks like somebody that doesn't have a lot of experience on drawing mammoths,
What
which
is that?
um it didn't have a trunk. What was this might be a Styracosaurus fighting an Albertosaurus. Yeah,
That that's
it's
supposed to be an Albertosaurus?
yeah, it's just the older depiction of them. Albertosaurus, the theropod dinosaurs in general, depending on how far back you go, were somewhat ugly. Back in like the 1960s, 1950s, depending on also who was drawing them. I mean, Charles R. Knight's T Rex, I mean, looks pretty good, especially for the time. But even today, it's really not a bad T Rex, especially when he's in that horizontal position. But these Styracosaurs, it is interesting. You'd also see this on a lot of toys, or you still do. When it comes to like the depiction of their horns, their overall skull structure, definitely not the better looking accumulation, but still an interesting like earlier 1900 sort of look.
Like this.
Okay, yeah, this is definitely better. Um, like, even though I think that was more recent depiction, like watercoloring maybe. But yeah, this is definitely you know what this looks like? He's some sort of late Cretaceous philosopher in this picture. Um, but when it comes to this Styracosaur,
Needs a pipe.
yeah, or a bit of a mustache, or maybe what's something else? No, he doesn't actually. You know, he's fine. Would be really weird. It doesn't seem that Styracosaurus had feathers. I think there are certain reconstructions of Styracosaurus showing it had feathers, kind of like Triceratops, so having porcupine quill-like feathers along their back. Okay, seems like a proud Styracosaurus. This is from
I think it's a statue.
Sensoriae. Yeah, it's not bad. Well, yeah, this is one of those instances with the ceratopsian, especially the centrosaurs, where the forelimbs are smaller than the hind limbs. Let's see, what's another thing? Just when it comes to the ceratopsids in general, I think many people assume that their frill structures are quite similar, but Triceratops, at least compared to Styracosaurus, I still like it, but it's somewhat dull when it comes to the horn accumulation. Styracosaurs, the Centrosaurs in general, certain Chasmosaurs had it too, but the Centrosaurs put a lot of effort into, at least their bodies put in a lot of effort when it came to creating a wide range of different horn structures along their frill, which would likely also help protect their bodies against an attack from incoming tyrannosaurs, as well as possibly dromaeosaurs in the region, or even other species of ceratopsians. Very likely they were fighting each other, much like where you have it when Cape buffalo, white rhinos, black rhinos come into contact with each other, hippos. Um, Occasionally over in like different parts of Asia, you have elephants and gar going at it, or even rhinos, but it tends to be quite minimal, at least in conflict.
Is this from a game?
Yeah, I think this might be Jurassic World Evolution 2. At least that's my guess. Yeah, this Styracosaurus, it has some issues. I think the neck's a bit thin. I think the upper beak is a bit short. Also, his nasal horn is far too short. Maybe for females, if they had smaller horns, certainly is possible, but it's just overall a bit small for a Styracosaurus.
There's a smaller horn.
He looks somewhat better when it comes to his overall body proportions, but his skull looks a bit more like Styracosaurus from the 1980s or 1990s. Also, it looks like the Styracosaur, at least when it comes to the frill accumulation with the horns from the movie Dinosaur, except that one had a really short horn.
Oh, wait a minute. Did I do this? Nope. Yeah.
This is what that artist was basing it off of. One of these depictions. At least I think this is from an older representation. Um, this, yeah, looks like this could be 1960s, 1970s. Definitely giving it to very short, like a small frill, but very elongated horns. Oh yeah, it's a bit better. Also a wide, like, front part of the snout too, and the nasal horns also. It's like looking at an elasmotherium to an extent. The one of the woolly rhinos from Ice Age Eurasia in Alaska and the Yukon, but still a bit of a debate as to whether or not that animal would have even have had a horn. If it did, it was probably a relatively short horn, like what we see here. Um, but much wider in diameter. But that is a weird Styracosaurus. Okay. At least here it's much more narrow and elongated.
This says
But
1913. Oh, no, it just says discovered 1913.
um,
I was thinking this was drawn in 1913.
yeah, I guess Styracosaurus was earlier on in the 1900s when it was discovered. Um, yeah, over in Alberta, Canada. And this was back when the Parasaurolophus had a lot of tissue connecting like the back of the neck to the crest. This would occur for many decades with this animal, also dragging their tails along the ground as well, having a very erect structure or vertical structure like the theropods. Okay, that is a very oh, it's the older depiction of the Polycanthus is what's supposed to represent, as well as the older depiction of the Styracosaurs. These are just, I think, are newer representations of those older depictions. It's not bad. Okay, thanks for joining. And from prehistoric to present, my name is Ethan. This is Creature Guide Live Daily News. Happy International Styracosaurus Day. And remember that nothing's better than all animals, all